Ghana Tonight is brought to you by
Flamingo Paint, superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.
Sasso insecticide spray and coil. It's Ghana Tonight live here on TV3. We're coming to you live from our news hub here at Adesawe Kanda. Let's get into our top stories right now. Tonight, at least 120,000 first-year students in public universities are on their way to receive refunds of tuition fees as government moves to make university education affordable to every Ghanaian child. Tonight, a breakdown of the numbers as the policy and other education interventions launched today. But also to come, President Mahama revisits election violence and calls for swift action. Tonight, he also makes a strong call for a probe into how electoral materials end up in unauthorized hands. Plus, Thomas Partey, Ghana Black Stars player and former Arsenal midfielder, denies any wrongdoing after British authorities charge him with rape and sexual assault. Oh, those are the big stories. I'm so grateful for your company. Thank you so much for watching us on TV3, listening to us on 392.7. We're also streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, 3news.com, and x.com. You can join us with your comments, your thoughts, questions that you may have about our subjects today. Use the hashtag Ghana Tonight. I am Keminni Amanor. Let's get the show rolling with Ghana Brief.
President John Dramani Mahama has lamented the growing number of Ghanaian students who are unable to pursue tertiary education due to financial constraints, describing the menace as a dream deferred. Speaking at the launch of the no-fee stress policy in Koforidua of the Eastern region, he drew attention to the human cost behind the statistics of students' inability to enroll as a result of academic-related fees.
This policy is not about welfare, it is about fairness. It is about restoring dignity to the Ghanaian student. It is about affirming that the right to education is not a privilege for only the wealthy, but it's a shared national inheritance.
President John Mahama has directed the Inspector General of Police to urgently conclude investigations into the electoral violence and ensure that perpetrators are held accountable. Speaking at the close of the post-2024 election evaluation dialogue, he reaffirmed his commitment to peace, democracy, and national unity.
Let me use this platform to unequivocally condemn these acts of violence and call for swift accountability for the perpetrators. Expedite investigations into these acts of electoral violence and bring the perpetrators to justice. The Attorney General is also working on a report to be presented to Cabinet for adequate compensation to be paid to victims and relatives of those affected by the violence.
The United States Deputy Ambassador to Ghana, Rolf Olsen, has indicated that the country will join forces with Ghana to expel threats of violent extremists. Speaking at an event to commemorate the 249th Independence Day of the U.S., he noted that America will continue to protect its borders from illegal immigration. The government of Ghana, on the other hand, says it is working to address concerns raised by the U.S. over visa restrictions for Ghanaian applicants.
The government of Ghana has taken note of the concerns raised by the U.S. government relating to visa issues with Ghanaian applicants and assure the U.S. government that the Ghana government is taking serious steps to address the concerns as soon as practicable.
The number of people living with HIV/AIDS in Ghana has surged to 334,000, a worrying trend that has reignited concern among health professionals and advocacy groups. First Lady Lodina Mahama, in partnership with the Ghana AIDS Commission, has launched a nationwide outreach campaign aimed at raising awareness, encouraging regular testing, and reducing new infections.
Many young people today are falling ill, sometimes due to a lack of access to the right information, services, or support they need. That is why today's health screening is very important. It provides everyone with the opportunity to get tested and take the necessary steps to maintain their health.
Former Arsenal footballer Thomas Partey has been charged with 5 counts of rape and 1 count of sexual assault. The offences are reported to have taken place between 2021-2022, the Metropolitan Police said. The charges involve 3 women with 2 counts of rape relating to 1 woman, 3 counts of rape in connection to a second woman, and 1 count of sexual assault linked to a third woman. The Ghanaian international denies the charges and welcomes the opportunity to finally clear his name, his lawyer said. The 32-year-old's contract with Arsenal ended on Monday after playing with the team since 2020.
Ghana brief there for you. Now let's get into our conversations proper, because a raft of interventions to make tertiary education affordable and accessible have been rolled out, and tonight government's no fees stress leads the way. Now, more than 150,000 first-year students in Ghana's public universities are likely to receive reimbursement of tuition fees. Already, some 15,000 have been reimbursed at least 2,000 cedis in fulfillment of President Mahama's campaign promise to make university education fee-free for first-year students. The no-fee stress policy was launched in the Eastern Regional Capital, Koforidua, where President John Dramani Mahama lamented the burden cost of tertiary education for students. Let's take a listen to the president.
School had opened, he had not gone to register because his family had not yet harvested their crops to sell and be able to raise the money for him to go. So again, we had to intervene and sort out the academic fees for the young man to go to school. So we realized that these are not isolated stories. These are real stories of people. Behind each number I mentioned is a face and a dream deferred. Tertiary education is not just about a certificate. It is the engine that powers a modern society. It is the engine that creates teachers, doctors, engineers, scientists, entrepreneurs, and public servants. It spurs innovation, it deepens civic responsibility, and fosters national identity. Students in fee-paying programs without regular track equivalents will receive a reimbursement of up to 2,500 cedis for their academic fees. This policy is complementary, it's not substitutionary. It does not replace existing allowances and loans, but it lightens the heaviest burden, that is the cost of entry, that keeps thousands of brilliant students outside the gates of institutions like this. This policy is not about welfare, it is about fairness. It is about restoring dignity to the Ghanaian student. It is about affirming that the right to education is not a privilege for only the wealthy, but it's a shared national inheritance.
Well, that's the president, John Dramani Mahama, giving an understanding as to why this policy is crucial for the children of this country. But here's a quick breakdown of the numbers behind the policy and what we have seen so far. Remember, I told you that about 150,000 people are already on their way to receive this. Now let's get a proper breakdown of it, if we could take a look at that right now. The target group, remember, is all first-year students, undergraduate students in public tertiary institutions. And so it's not just universities. We're looking at teacher training colleges, agri colleges, and the likes. Exclusions will be students in private institutions and all postgraduate students. I mean, that goes without saying. It also covers academic tuition and related facility user fees. That does not include residential fees, examination, or other ancillary fees. We also know that the benefit format is non-repayable grant and it is not a loan. Remember that at the beginning of the, the academic year, the students had paid to get in school. When the government came into office and launched this, in fact, reimbursement have already begun before the launch which took place today. So how much is government putting into this exercise? It is estimated some 499.8 million cedis will be allocated to the exercise. That's nearly 500 million cedis. The actual committed amount for the 2025 academic year is 452.94 million cedis. Let's take a look at some more details. 156,294 first-year students across all these public tertiary institutions will benefit from it. Each of them will receive at least 2,000 cedis. And based on some of the text messages of alerts from their banks that we have seen here at TV3, some are receiving between 2,000, 2,200, 2,500 and the like. You also heard the president that they'll be receiving up to 2,500. But then again, also dependent on the course that you applied to do in the university or you're doing in your first year in the university and how much that program costs, right? So what's the funding source? The national budget channels through Get Fund revenue backed by petroleum revenues and education levies. Now remember that this is why the government has told us time without number that funding this will not be a problem because these are statutory funds, right? And the disbursement method, Get Fund will pay institutions directly on behalf of the students. But what we have seen happen is the students are being paid directly, right? So they are receiving their money in their bank accounts opened with GCB. It's easier that way. They are getting it. Government makes business through GCB as well. We grow the state-owned bank as well. What's the refund policy? Students who already paid their fees will receive the funds or future credits. There are a few more numbers I was hoping to give you. Because again, we know that the portal that has been opened, about 145,000 students have already gone to the portal. Now, this does not mean that all the 145,000 students registered, right? We know that out of the 145,000 who visited the web portal, about 125,000 of them have submitted application. Again, when we go back a little bit, remember I told you this is targeted at 156,294 students. Excuse me, I'll say that number again. 156,294 students, 94,000 students will benefit from this. Already, 125,000 of them, maybe even more as of now, have applied, submitted their applications on the portal. From this number, we know that some 49,000 have been validated because, again, when you apply doesn't mean you're getting. As of this morning, we learned that the number of validated applications are 49,000. So how many students have actually received the money? And that's what you see on your screen. 15,000 of them have got the money already. And many of them are jubilating, already figuring out what to do next. Again, at the beginning of the program today, I told you that the no-fee stress is not the only thing that was launched today. Because then the question of, okay, if you're already running this, why are you launching? If it's running, just let it go. Let's not spend any money on launches. But there's a response to that, and I'll let you know. Because government also has big plans to ensure access to scholarships are easier and processes are streamlined. Yes, the Education Minister, Haruna Idrisu, during the launch.
Yeah, the GET Fund will double its allocation to the Student Loan Trust from 70 million to 150 million to support students who may want to access it further. I will next week, on your behalf, in honor of one of your campaign promises, lay the Scholarship Authority Bill before Parliament to deal with the nepotism, cronyism that was associated with the award of scholarship.
Well, joining us now is Dr. Peter Partey, Executive Director of the Institute of Education Studies. Doc, thank you so much for your time. But obviously, this is a very laudable idea. From where you sit, what could this do for students? What does it mean for students across the country?
Thank you very much, Keminni, and good evening to your viewers. I agree that this is a very important initiative. You have gone into the numbers, so I will look at the policy aspect of it. We all know that there are two main challenges that affect access to education at all levels. It's either infrastructure or financial. So at the tertiary level, we know that most of the time, a lot more people apply. Now, those who apply, some of them are not admitted at all. The reason why these people are not admitted is because the institutions do not have the capacity to admit all of them. So although they qualify, they are not admitted. That group of people do not have, you cannot classify that group of people who have been denied access as you cannot classify them under those who do not have financial ability to go to school. So that is a big challenge already in the tertiary system. Then we have those who are admitted but are not able to pay their fees. And that happens every year. All of us, we get these calls, we see them on social media, and so on and so forth. So what this particular policy seems to address is for those who get admission but are not able to pay the admission fee because of the financial challenges. And in that perspective, I would say that it is a very good idea. Of course, when you promise people during a campaign period and in an era where a lot of people don't believe in politicians, I think the best thing that you have to do is to implement your policies as have been promised to the people. So although some of us have serious reservations with how the no fee stress has been packaged, we think that because it is a campaign promise, they needed to do it for the first year, possibly second year, but as they go on, there should be a serious modification to this whole no fee stress, because I think that it might not be sustainable looking at the model that have been adopted, and there are other issues that needs to be looked into as they progress. So it's a good thing for the students.
Indeed, Doc, let's run it back a little because I need clarity from something you said. Are you saying that the no fee stress policy is targeted at only students who cannot pay at the first year level?
Exactly, because if I don't get admission, I can't access this. And that is why I said that there are two barriers.
Well, again, so that we don't confuse our viewers, we know that the no fee stress policy is for all first year students in public university. It is not a need-based grant for students. It is for everybody entering first year public university.
Yes. So let me go back again so that you get the point I'm trying to make. Now, we have a lot more people apply for admission into the tertiary institution. That is the basic fact. Some are admitted, some are not. And in most instances, the universities admit according to their capacity. What I'm saying is that the no fee stress will deal with those who have gained admission. But the problem, people still not accessing tertiary education because of infrastructure, is still there. And that's the point I'm trying to make.
I see. And you think that there could be a solution to that problem? What will that solution be?
That is why I'm thinking that they will need to modify this particular policy, because to increase access does not always rely or lean on finance. It also includes infrastructure. So if you make it wholesale like we are experiencing now, you are not able to save some money to also expand the infrastructure in the tertiary institution, so that those who will not gain admission, not because of financial reason, but because the universities or the tertiary institutions do not have the capacity to admit them, would also have the opportunity to get access to tertiary institution. That's the point I'm making. So you don't make it open for everybody to benefit from this. And I think that through some discussions, I've seen that this has been now redesigned to be some form of a grant that is being given to the students, and you need to apply. So as you were giving the statistics, you saw that a lot more people have applied. They are validating some of them, and they are paying some of them. And I think that is what needs to be done. It shouldn't be, a free for all students entering tertiary institutions. There should be some mechanisms to ensure that those who really need this are those who are giving, and that is why I think that the validation and all those things need to be strengthened, so that we get some other monies that can be used to improve and expand the tertiary institutions for those who are not admitted at all because of the capacity nature of the tertiary institutions, for them to also be admitted and experience tertiary education. I think that is the two angles that I'm looking at. Don't only focus on the finance, also look at the challenges of infrastructure in our tertiary institutions, and you can save money from that angle and then use it to improve infrastructure also.
So I want to separate the issues, right? When you talked about a sustainable model, in a conversation I had with the coordinator for the Students' Loan Trust Fund, Dr. Sajida Shiraz, I mean, she outlines other interventions that could come at play. Let's take a listen to her. Then I pick your thoughts on long-term plan is to make university education most affordable for students of this country.
So the no fee stress policy is a multi-fold promise. It is more than the no academic fee policy. It contains about 5 proposals. One is the no academic fee policy, which we are reimbursing for. The second is the free tertiary for persons with disabilities. We also have the Student Plus Initiative, which offers more comprehensive support to students. And then we also have a mandate to explore and increase loan amounts and coverage for students. And finally, also to explore how we can diversify funding sources. So what we are launching is not just one policy, but it is the initiative of John Mahama to enhance tertiary education financing. And John Mahama, we were this late in launching because we wanted to launch a tangible, and we wanted proof that the no fee stress policy was not just political talk, but it is something he's intentional about and it's something he's committed to. So the reimbursement ahead of time is just to show that we are already implementing it, and the cohort of promises that comprise the no fee stress policy we intend to carry out as well. So if there's any doubt in anybody's mind that we would implement all parts of the no fee stress policy, the fact that some students have already received their reimbursement is testament to the fact that we are committed to this promise and we will execute this promise.
Dr. Shiraz is there. I spoke with her earlier today on News Central. But Dr. Partey, I come to you with that. You hear her when she says, look, we have other interventions to ensure that even when you go to the upper levels, right, you'll be able to get soft loans that are different from the traditional slit loans to be able to embark on your education. Ultimately, the plan is to ensure that you can get university education debt-free. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's the more reason why they will need to modify this free-for-all payments at the first year level, because we know that not all students want to take the student loan, and how this has been designed. As you move to level 200, then you are enrolled on the student loan plus or whatever model that they have there, and then you continue to benefit from the loan. The point is that most students would have to pay the admission before they are even allowed to register. So if you don't have the financial resources to pay for your admission, you would not be able to register, and this refund or this no fee stress will not mean much to you. So one of the things that they will need to do is to rather design their model in such a way that when I get at my admission letter and then I have my Ghana card and other things, I can just upload on your platform, and then I will be giving anything, or there will be a link between the trust fund and the university for them to transfer or for them to commit to the university so that I can go ahead and register. And I teach in the university.
And I apologize for the interruption, but I think ultimately that is the plan. Now, remember that some of these students went to school a little early than the government was able to put into action its plan. And that's why the students have had to pay their first year fees before the government was able to do the refund. I think ultimately the plan is what you are talking about, that the policy will be linked with the university platform so that when you're coming in first year, it is not cash before admission. It is admission and then that's it for your first year. So ultimately, that is where we are getting. What I'm very interested in tonight is when you raise concerns about funding, the government has said, look, we won't have problems with funding because we are getting the monies from Get Fund, and we know where Get Fund gets its money from, right? These are statutory payments. These are payments that come from our own taxes and certain allocations that are made. They also talk about some budgetary allocations. It would seem on the surface that we know where the money will come from. Why do you still have a fear?
Because there are competing needs at the tertiary level that you cannot just push money to the first year payment system. There are competing needs, and I already told you about the infrastructure deficits in our tertiary institutions. Again, if you move to most of our colleges of education, you will see a lot of Get Fund projects that have been abandoned. And I'm saying that you can structure this in such a way that you don't pay for everybody, and it's just education financing principle that you don't do a wholesale payment where people are able, or where people will be able to pay. The same argument that we made with free senior high school, that's the same argument that we are making today, that you do not need to pay for every single person who gets enrolled into a tertiary institution for the first year. There should be a mechanism to sieve them so that the monies that would, for example, so if you have 100 people and you sieve and you get about, you are paying for 60, you have 40 that is left, that is saved, that can go into infrastructure development for those who were not admitted at all because of the infrastructure challenges to also access tertiary education. That is the principle that we want to push, and we will continue to push that for government to revise its stance. But as it stands now, as I've said, it's a promise that was made. It needs to be fulfilled. But going into the future, we need to remodel it in such a way that we do pay for those who need the assistance, and then we save money to improve the infrastructure in our tertiary institutions.
Very well. Point well made. Thank you so much for talking to us, Dr. Partey. Dr. Peter Partey is Executive Director for the Institute for Education Studies here in Ghana. Let's take a listen to some students, because some of them have been expressing their own views on the refunds they have received, refunds they are expecting, perhaps even what they will use that money for. Take a listen.
I was very, very happy because I wasn't having any money. So when I received it, I was like, wow. And what he said, he meant it, and he has truly done it. And I'm very happy. I'm very, very happy. My parents, it's true, they give it to me. I'll tell them, but the money, I'll take it. It's mine. Next year, if I don't have money to pay my fees, which is maybe my parents are facing financial difficulty, I can probably use this money to pay. If it's still with me, yeah, I have to even think about it. I can use it to pay for my next year fees. Yes, and it will really help me.
A lot of parents want to get the exact money for their children to pay the school fees. So I think the government giving us back our school fees will help us.
It will help reduce the stress on parents as well, and those who have to prepare their wards for school. The government has really helped in taking up this lift on us.
It would go a long way to help me, because I can save the money for some 1 or 2 stuff.
Well, see university students who have seen money. They're very happy. We all like it, don't we? Their parents should follow up, right? Anyway, let's turn attention to other matters. You know, money has a way of throwing you off. Time for justice and time to nip electoral offences in the bud. President Mahama is calling for investigations, but into what and to what end? Well, now, tonight, President John Dramani Mahama is hinting at a probe into how electoral materials end up in unauthorized hands. He's been speaking about this matter at the post-election dialogue, election evaluation dialogue. I want to show you what the president has been saying so far real quick, because it's a really important matter. I'll detail that, but let's see what the president has been saying, because in his words, he says, we must investigate how authentic ballot papers of the Electoral Commission and other electoral materials fall into unauthorized hands during elections. Now, the president was speaking at the post-election evaluation dialogue, in case you haven't got that across yet. But more importantly, it brings to mind the many incidents of electoral materials that pop up or are found in strange hands and places. Now, these incidents go as far back as the beginning of elections. But let's start off from 2008. The most concerning one, however, could easily be the last elections of 2024, when thieves broke into the secure storage facility of the Electoral Commission to steal biometric devices, or when some devices that were supposed to have been destroyed were seen in possession of individuals in the eastern region. There are at least half a dozen of such incidents of thieving, stealing of electoral logistics, being in the wrong hands at the end of the day in certain circumstances, impacting the election or attempting to impact the election. Tonight, the president says it's time to get to the root cause, as he also directs the Inspector General of Police to urgently conclude investigations into the electoral violence and ensure that perpetrators are held accountable. But remember again, it's not the first time he is making such a call. But let's take a listen to the president today when he made that call and spoke at the national dialogue, post-election evaluation dialogue. And then I'll tell you why it's not the first time he's making such a call.
The government, in collaboration with the National Peace Council and civil society, has implemented a range of interventions to deepen national consensus, strengthen conflict prevention mechanisms, and foster public trust in the institutions that underpin our democracy, especially those responsible for elections, investigations, and prosecution of electoral offenses. While Ghana once again demonstrated its democratic resilience in the 2024 elections, culminating in a largely peaceful transfer of power, we cannot ignore that the process was marred by isolated acts of violence in some constituencies. Let me use this platform to unequivocally condemn these acts of violence and call for swift accountability for the perpetrators. Expedite investigations into these acts of electoral violence and bring the perpetrators to justice. The Attorney General is also working on a report to be presented to Cabinet for adequate compensation to be paid to victims and relatives of those affected by the violence. Let me take this opportunity to commend the Electoral Commission, our security services, civil society organizations, political parties, and the electorate for their collective role in ensuring that Ghana's democratic credentials remain intact after the 2024 election.
President John Dramani Mahama there. If you just joined us, this is Ghana Tonight. And for those of us who've been with us here from the beginning, I told you that this is not the first time the president is making a call on an IGP to investigate the 2020 election violence and the 2024 election violence as well. And I want to show you where it happened, because very early on in his administration, or when he took office, he had directed then IGP George Ekufu Dampare to establish a dedicated investigative task force within the CID to focus solely on the election-related deaths, engage eyewitnesses, victims' families, and relevant persons for comprehensive accounts, examine the conduct of security personnel deployed at the affected polling stations, apply forensic analysis to physical evidence such as bullet casings and weapons, collaborate with the Electoral Commission and other civic bodies for broader context, provide periodic progress to ensure transparency and maintain public confidence. So that was on January 10th to 2025 to Dr. George Ekufu-Dampare, who was then the IGP. Now check out the date, January 10th, 2025. When did John Mahama take office? January 7th, 2025. So we are talking 3 days after he took office. He made this call on the IGP. We know subsequently very little was heard of it. The IGP lost his job. A new IGP came into office. My question is, what has the new IGP been doing about this? Perhaps I'll even add whether or not it's important for the president to even make a second call for us to know what has happened. We are not joined by Richard Kumado, who is a security analyst. Richard, do you share my questions? What are your thoughts on this?
You made me laugh this evening. 10th January to 4th July. I think it's a long time. And if you look through many of the items the president stated in his first letter to the IGP, one of them was transparency and progress report. It will be important for my uncle Yohonu as the new IGP to update the general public on the progress of the election violence investigations, particularly the 2021. The reason why the 2021 is important is that there has been some level of investigations, and I know in Techima South, the case went to court, which means that the investigators have done some level of work. The Attorney General has confidence, and that is why they went to court. It will be important for the IGP to update the general public on the 2020 election violence as the baseline for the 2024. Overall, our elections are becoming a little bit too violent. 2020, you lost 8 people. 2024, you lost 6 people. And that is unheard of. And it is a collective responsibility that we all come together in dealing with this perpetration of violence against individuals who form line to vote and people who manage our elections in Ghana. So I agree with you, but this is a broad overview of where we are and what we have done so far.
But Richard, you understand the workings of investigating crime and incidents, right? Is this such a challenge to investigate electoral violence or election-related violence and deaths, so much so that up until now, we still don't know when justice will be served on the victims of these crimes?
It depends on the nature of the crime, where the crime is committed, the perpetrators involved, the investigators assigned to the job, and the willingness and able of management to provide the requisite resources for the investigation. Other than that, some investigations can take 1 day, others can take 1 week, others can take a month, and others can take a year or many more years more. I think now that the president has made a second request, the onus is on the IGP and the police management team to ensure that some of these investigations have seen the light of day, so that the victims and their families can have a closure to what has befallen them. I think collectively, the ineptitude of the managers of our election in this country is creating many more problems for us, and they must work very hard to ensure that we do not register many more deaths.
But could this be because we are not taking these incidents and the deaths that occur during elections or election periods seriously?
I agree with you, because I've always maintained the position that non-punishable of offenses will always rationalize bad behavior and promote antisocial tendencies in society. From Ayawaso West Wagon to many of the ones we had before the Ayawaso West Wagon, and from what we have done with it, it means that as a nation, we are not bold enough in prosecuting crime. And once people know they can commit crime and get away with it, or use political cover to cover their crimes, and we are only interested in going for the small boys and girls who steal plantains and overlook many of these heinous crimes, it becomes a motivation and it provides the premises for others to do the same. We are talking about Ablukumanov elections that have not been completed up to today. And we are talking about Tema Central, we are talking about Damango, we are talking about Insawam and Simu and Okankwe South, Okankwe North, and many of the challenges we had. It should be a learning time, and it should be a learning curve for everybody who is involved in election management in this country. Investigation is key. Prosecuting the people and serving as a deterrent is also key. I will agree with the president, it has kept a long time. The new IGP must give an update on what they have done so far. And if there are challenges, they should let everybody know. And I believe the presidency will make the resources available to them. Together with that, I also want to say that the BNI must get involved and work together with the police in unraveling the perpetrators and make sure that they are brought to book. And that is the only way we can serve deterrence. Other than that, it's becoming one of too many in this country where people die through elections, which is not too necessary at all.
Indeed, I mean, it leaves us wondering whether or not Dampare's cold case team are still on this matter, investigating, or it's as cold case could be, and that's why we are not hearing anything at all. But can we truly have a post-2024 election evaluation if we do not get to the bottom of these crimes?
Definitely not. And I wish the report on the evaluation will be made public to the general public again. You remember before 2024 elections, they went to sign a peace pact at the head office of the Ghana Police Service. Some of us were of the view that what is the outcome of the investigations of the 2020 elections? Nobody said anything. What was the benchmark for the blueprint Dampare brought out? Those should be the basis, and the families should be heard, and they should be educated, and there should be upgrade or updated version of what has happened. Nobody said anything. We went ahead and signed the peace pact, knowing very well that the peace pact has no legal background and there's no legality to stand on. And we went into election and 6 people died. And we keep covering it up. It means that we are either doing it deliberately, or we don't know what we are doing, or there's no punishment and there's no accountability, just as it is common to many of the things we do in this country. I think the president must stress the point again, even though he has done it the second time, and make sure that we follow up to see what is the outcome of this evaluation and what role has the police played in terms of investigation and prosecution of these crimes we are talking about. If there are difficulties, let the BNI get involved, let the Attorney General make the available resources available to them, and let them investigate these cases. Otherwise, it's going to be a dent on our hands, and people have blood on their hands, and they need some closure to some of these matters, particularly the victims and their families.
I see. This is not the only matter of concern to the president. And I want to show us again what the president has been saying on an equally crucial matter. And Richard, perhaps you want to listen to this one as well, if you haven't already heard. He says we must investigate how authentic ballot papers of the Electoral Commission and other electoral materials fall into unauthorized hands during elections. Very important call. I've already been outlining what we saw in the 2024 elections. And, to be fair to the leader of the Electoral Commission at this time, it's not the first time that we are seeing this happen, but it is under the regime that we have now, the Jean Mensah-led Electoral Commission, that we've seen at least half a dozen of these cases. Very, very, very significant cases happening. And again, I'll go back if you didn't hear, the stealing of those devices from the secure storage facility of the Electoral Commission. Remember that biometric device also that was seen somewhere it should have been one of those allegedly that were destroyed, but it was in the hands of somebody. It's unclear what could have happened. The broken seal also on ballot papers that were being transferred. And we saw a whole host of them in the Volta region and many other regions where ballot papers were in the hands, authentic ballot papers, so to speak, were allegedly in the hands of unauthorized persons. And Peter, I come to you, Richard, I come to you with this, right? Because you recall that when that secure storage break-in occurred, the Electoral Commission had told us, look, We have handed whoever it is to the police. But how quiet it has been, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely yes. I follow election in this country from 1992. I am the founder of the Independent Election Security and Compliance Watchers. We are interested in compliance when it comes to procedure and processes and security and the overall management of our election. If you look at where Madame Charlotte Osei took over from Papa Farijan, the difficulties we had in the days of Papa Farijan, Madame Charlotte Osei opened it up and brought in some level of innovations. Unfortunately, she didn't last. I am of the view that these current election managers, Madame J. Mensah and her colleagues, have not been fair to us in terms of their conduct and how well they have managed the electoral processes in this country. The levels of ineptitude and inaccuracies and inconsistencies coming out of the Electoral Commission has created a premises where fraud can be perpetrated on any day, any time. And they know nobody can touch them. And there's no level of accountability, and they have not been responsible for many of the things we expected from them. It's well what you may be asking from the police, because it's a shared responsibility. And once the Electoral Commission has displayed a negative attitude and their ineptitude is above board, what do you expect from the police? I can understand the police must investigate and make the perpetrators make available and let them be prosecuted. But all election matters lied on the responsibility of the election managers of this country. We went to Supreme Court. Then she was shaded from climbing the box to testify and give an account of her stewardship. You can disagree, but that is what we were served with. What do you expect from them? I think as Black people and as Ghanaians, as we progress with our democracy and enhance the frontiers of our democracy and governance, elections, in electing our national leaders into offices is very important. And we must do everything possible to ensure that our elections are becoming more transparent, there's objectivity, and issues of fraud and illegality is taken out of our system. Other than that, we might be setting ourselves for trouble, and we might have more on the plate than we can. And there are various examples across Africa that we must learn from. And we must do everything possible to make sure that our system is fair.
Just quickly, right? A point of contention is when you say that what more can the police do? When the Electoral Commission has referred the matter to the police, it is left then for the police to investigate and prosecute and perhaps even create a form of deterrence or a point of lesson for anyone who would want to engage in such criminal acts. But here it would appear we take lightly election-related crimes once again. So it is as much a responsibility of the police as it is of the Electoral Commission. Do you agree?
Definitely. That is why they form part, the two of them form part of the election security. But who has the responsibility of conducting elections in this country? It's the Electoral Commission. As somebody who has dealt with criminals for all 28 years, 29 years this year, I'm always of the view that we can prevent it. And I will always go for prevention rather than reacting. If you cannot be doing the same thing and getting the same mistakes all the time. It means that you are either not prepared or you have not rehearsed your processes properly. And that has always been my bone of contention with the managers of elections in this country. I am saying that as much as the police have a responsibility, the Electoral Commission and the officers of our election management board in this country have a serious duty to ensure that when you say things are locked, they are properly locked. And when you say A, it has to be A, because many times they said A, and it turned out to be B and C and D. You are creating credibility issues for yourself, and that is why people might not want to take the election managers of this country seriously.
Richard, we'll end our conversation here. Thank you so much for talking to us. Richard Kumador is a security analyst. We've been talking on the back of that post-2024 elections evaluation dialogue. The event was launched in the Eastern Regional Capital, Koforidua, earlier today, and the president has been making two key calls on the Electoral Commission, but also on our security agencies, particularly the police. If you missed the conversation, just stay with us. We'll bring you some snippets later. But when we come back from this break, Thomas Partey faces serious criminal charges. Tonight, he speaks for the first time since his 5-year stay at Arsenal ended on Monday. Welcome back. It's still Ghana Tonight here on TV3 and on 392.7 FM. I am Keminni Amanor. Tonight, Thomas Partey is speaking through his lawyers as heads as he heads to trial after being charged with multiple counts of rape and sexual harassment. British authorities say the charges come after painstakingly investigating and gathering evidence of the crimes. The Black Stars player is accused of raping 2 women and sexually assaulting a third. The Crown Prosecution Service, which gave Metro Police the green light to prosecute, said in a statement that the CPS, quote, prosecutors have worked closely with officers in the Metropolitan Police who have carried out the investigation to review the evidence and advise on the appropriate charges. End of quote. Now, according to the indictment, the 32-year-old faces 2 counts of rape against 1 woman and 3 counts of rape against another. Now, these crimes, authorities say, allegedly took place between 2021 and 2022. Now, Partey, who only on Monday ended his 5-year contract with Arsenal, has denied all the accusations and any wrongdoing. He's been speaking through his lawyer. And according to the statement the lawyer released, Partey has fully cooperated with authorities throughout the 3-year investigation. And now, pay attention to this one, really important from that statement, quote, he welcomes the opportunity to finally clear his name, end of quote. So that's what you see on your screens. Thomas Partey, through his lawyer, has welcomed the opportunity to finally clear his name, given that there are now ongoing legal proceedings. He will not be commenting any further on this matter. So that's what we're hearing from Thomas Partey since the CPS gave Met Police the green light to apply charges and prosecute him. We also know that he's due for court next month on August 5th. Discussions have already begun on the back of these developments that we're seeing. Lawyer Sami Bartels has been speaking to News 360, and he said, at this point, really, there are allegations and yet to be proven.
Reaction will be, let's not immediately presume guilt. This is because the CPS have just announced the criminal charges against him and have announced his first date in court. It does not conclude that he is guilty by any stretch of imagination. As the CPS's own guidance states, it is not their function to decide whether a person is guilty of a criminal offense or not. Theirs is to make a fair, independent, and objective assessment about whether it is appropriate to present charges for a criminal court to consider, which is what they have done. It's also too early to analyze the merits of the charges. We don't know the evidence. We don't have full details of what the prosecution's case is. And this news just broke less than 24 hours ago as I speak today being Friday, the 4th of July, 2025. So in terms of the charges, these are very serious charges. 5 counts of rape and 1 count of sexual assault. These are very serious offenses. Each count represents a separate offense that the defendant, in this case Partey, is accused of committing. And so whatever the outcome is, it will have some impact on him. The extent of it and the nature of the impact will depend on the outcome of the case. Now, Partey's career from a football perspective may not be fatally impacted, especially his prospects outside the United Kingdom, depending on the outcome, and again, based on recent cases involving footballers. And the other side for him is that he's currently not under contract. So the scenarios where certain players who were charged with similar offenses were suspended with or without salary does not apply to him because his contract is already ended with Arsenal. But recent examples show that the biggest impact will be on his reputation.
And that's something I want you to keep in mind, because a little later I will show you a very personable conversation that he's had recently. But still on this matter, the question will be, how serious are these charges that have been brought against the Ghanaian footballer? Lawyer Kofi Ampa has been explaining.
If Thomas Partey is found guilty of the charges, the legal consequences could be severe, because we are talking about rape and sexual assault here with multiple victims. So under the Sexual Offences Act in UK, the punishment for rape can be as severe as life imprisonment. And for sexual assault, we are talking of imprisonment for a term of not exceeding 10 years. So to answer the question directly, the consequences could certainly be dire. But however, it's crucial to remember that while the number of accusations, as you've said, may seem overwhelming, each charge will have to be treated independently based on its merits. So,
well, but then again, remember, these are just accusations that have been made. The matter goes to trial on August 5th. We'll continue to follow the story. But also, I've been telling you that Thomas Partey sat down with Media General, had a very personable conversation. He's been talking about his life, the lessons he's learned, and why he does not like trouble. Quite a bit, right? He doesn't like trouble at all. Here is an interview he had earlier before today with General Manager, Media General Sports, Michael Otieje.
Yeah, I think it's the major part of it, because then now my focus is not outside anymore. It's training and home. So I just have to live two lives. I'm not living a life where I have to go out and explore. I need to go to a nightclub. I need to meet a friend to eat outside. I do everything at home. So I'm more stable home, more stable mind, and then I just have to focus on playing football. And then my body is relaxed. I don't need to, be driving 1 hour in and out. So everything is involved. And I think to be able to be stable, to be focused, to play your football, you need a stable home.
A stable home indeed, and we'll continue to follow the story, bring you updates as and when they emerge. We're looking closely at August 5 and how the trial takes off in the UK Magistrate Court. That'll be all tonight. I'm always grateful for your company. Before I go, let's do the quick ritual of telling you what to expect over the weekend on the weekend's biggest politics shows here on TV3. First is the key points. Tomorrow, 7 a.m., Alfred Okanse returns to your screens with his panel. Look at that panel. I see Guzitano, who's in charge of the 24-hour economy. You can understand why it's a very important conversation to be had. And then the usual suspects are also there. Martin Pebu. I also see that Dr. Zato is there as well. And it will be a conversation on the economy. The Ghana Bar Association's calls for reversal of CJ's suspension and the Ablekuma North election rerun. Remember that the NPP is unhappy about the rerun. The NDC, on the other hand, is looking forward to the rerun in those polling stations. That's a conversation to be had. How about you join me also on Sunday at 2 p.m. when I bring you hot issues, because in this edition, we sit down with the Minister for Labour, Jobs and Employment, Dr. Rashid Pelpo. We discuss how this administration plans to realize the 1.7 million jobs it promises in the 24-hour economy over the next 4 years. In that is the element of 300,000 new jobs every year. The dynamics are thrown out there in that conversation. You want to tune in for that. But also of crucial importance is how you retire. When you retire today, what will you earn? It's an important question that the Labour Minister tackles. He also talks about whether or not we are going to see a repeat of some of the sins or snits that we saw in the previous administration, how they plan to stop that and the likes. Very, very important conversation. Tune in, Hot Issues, 2 p.m. and watch that episode as well. I've talked enough. It's time to go. I'll see you same time next week. I'm Keminni Amanor. Bye-bye.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by
Flamingo Paint, superior durability.